Well, it's been a long time since I last did this. I actually simulated this week a long time ago, over a month ago, but now I'm finally getting around to doing this now, as it's now time for Week 10 of the 2021 DCFL season. But of course, before we begin, we gotta take a look at the current stands after Week 9. So in the Eastern Conference, the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions lead with 9-0, followed by Jacksonville at 7-2. And the New York Gangsters have the tiebreaker over Philadelphia and Baltimore for that last wildcard spot. Philadelphia has a tiebreaker over Baltimore, then Baltimore's 5th and Boston's 6th. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, the Chicago Staleys have the tiebreaker over Tacoma as they're the number 1 seed. Tacoma's number 2, and Oakland has the tiebreaker over Seattle for the last spot in the wildcard, followed by Seattle, San Diego, and Kansas City. Alright, so as we take a look at the schedule for Week 10, as it's going to start off with the Baltimore Charm at the Chicago Staleys. Then a big one is the Tacoma Slashers visit the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions. Then the Seattle Tenyo visit the Jacksonville Scouts. The New York Gangsters visit the Kansas City Arrowheads. The Boston Red Jackets visit the Oakland Pillagers. And finally, the Philadelphia Sox visit the San Diego Mean Green Machines. So now it's time to start Week 10. And here are the results for Week 10, as my Charm lost to Chicago 31-16. Never really was in it, unfortunately, as we're 2 games back, as Chicago, after starting off 0-3, has gone 6-1 since, as they have a dominant lead right now in the division. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions completely dismantled Tacoma. I guess no surprise, the 3-time champion going up against an expansion team, as they won 56-6, as they pushed Tacoma back to 500. Meanwhile, Seattle visited Jacksonville and actually put up a very strong fight in the end, but Jacksonville managed to stop Seattle on the final drive of the game to hold on to win 22-19 to get above 500. At 500, as Seattle is continuing to lose. Meanwhile, after that, the New York Gangsters visited the Kansas City Arrowheads, and Kansas City finally ended their 6-game losing streak as they won it by a weird score of 16-5, as New York could not get any offense going whatsoever, just a field goal and a safety, and Kansas City got all their points really in the second quarter to get the win as they ended their losing streak as New York continues to struggle. Then the Oakland Pillagers hold on to beat the Boston Red Jackets, although it was 28-7 at one point, as they're now back at 500. And then finally, the Philadelphia Sonics continue their good season as San Diego put up a strong performance, but wasn't enough to get the win, as Philadelphia won 26-21 to get back to 500, as San Diego is now back down to 3-7. Alright now, and here is the conferences now going after Week 10, as the Indianapolis leads by 2 games, with Jacksonville right behind at 8-2, and then the Philadelphia Sox now have sole control over the wildcard spot to try and make the playoffs for the first time ever, as my Charm are the 4th seed, New York is the 5th seed, and Boston is the 6th seed. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, Chicago still has the 1-game lead over Tacoma and Oakland, as Tacoma has a tiebreaker still over Oakland. They're the 2 teams in the playoffs, as Tacoma is trying to get in for the first time ever. Seattle's looking out in as the 4th seed. San Diego has a tiebreaker over Kansas City. So now, of course, we actually got some playoff scenarios. Indianapolis, all they have to do is just win, or Baltimore and New York lose, and they clinch a playoff spot. And possibly also Jacksonville, if they win and Baltimore and New York lose, they might possibly get in the playoffs as well, but it's unsure about them. And of course, no changes in the Western Conference. Indianapolis and maybe Jacksonville can clinch a playoff spot next week. And then we finally wrap it up by looking at the Week 11 schedule, as it'll start off with Indianapolis at Baltimore, like I said, with the playoff spot on the line. Then it'll be Jacksonville at Boston, and then New York visit Philadelphia, visit New York with that 3rd playoff spot on the line. Then the Western Conference divisional matchups will be Kansas City at Chicago, Oakland at San Diego, and finally wrap up with a big one as Tacoma visits Seattle. We're down to the final 6 weeks. We'll see if Indianapolis and maybe Jacksonville can clinch a playoff spot next week with 5 weeks left. So tune in next time for Week 11.